This afternoon, we have the opportunity to hear from some fantastic folks who are all across the country, coming from big schools and small schools, telling us a little bit about their experience transitioning from grad school to their professional careers while in a pandemic. So without further ado, I'd like to share with you the cast of the Higher Ed podcast. After our presentation today, I will post in the chat some more information about them, as well as how to follow and listen to their podcast every week. So thank you so much and enjoy.
So before we kick it off, thank y'all for having us. I greatly appreciate our presence being welcomed. For those of you who are tuned in to the keynote, we don't use Zoom in our respective locations a lot. We use Zoom, we don't use Teams. So we're gonna navigate this like a new job, and we'll take it one step at a time. But in the spirit, you are tuned in to the Higher Ed podcast live at the virtual OCPA conference. And this may actually make it on one of our posted episodes where millions of people, or thousands, I'm not going to be too modest, thousands of people can stream it. So you're a part of one of our first live episodes. And so I'm Jordan.
Go ahead.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Zach.
I'm Hannah.
And so today we'll be going ahead and talking about, as they said, how we kind of experience the candidate experience and the job transition through this pandemic from grad school, doing everything virtually, and kind of how we have been able to do that ourselves. So we'll first start off with talking about the candidate experience, right? So understanding that there's some folks that we just ourselves went through, some of us still going through trying to find a job, and it was an experience, to say the least. I remember Jordan, Fernando, and Fernando's having some technical difficulties. We signed up to go to TPE, right? We're like, we're gonna go to the placement exchange. This is gonna be the quickest way to get this job, get a job in general, meet a lot of candidates and everything. And then obviously COVID happened, right? And then they transitioned that to virtual. And even then, hiring just stopped. So it was we did all of these things and we had an experience, but it was an experience that no one could speak to, asking anyone for advice on how to even handle this job situations. I couldn't get that advice from anywhere. And so the experience was kind of on the fly, kind of the things that we did really, for me at least. And there are some key things that we kept that were similar to the regular job interview process, right? Like understanding what kind of institution do you want to work for, right? What are the values? What are the things that you want to take over to the position and that you want the institution to get from you, right? And then also formulating questions. You still need to have those questions, right, to ask. But this time it was a lot different, right? So it was what are you going to do to make sure that I stay safe if I come back to campus? Asking about those things, or getting protective equipment, or even for our students that we'd be supervising, what does that look like for us? So the way that we were formulating questions was a lot different as well. And so I think that experience was wild, and I applaud my friends that are still going through it or that has just finished it. Shout out to Hannah. And so, I applaud all of us for finishing that, and shout out to COVID grads. We did that. I don't know if any of us have anything else to add about the candidate experience and how that was for you all.
I think for me, because I'm still kind of going through it, at least higher ed related, but I took a position somewhere else temporarily outside of higher ed. I think just being real, just being who you are and real about your process, and definitely integrating, asking how folks do take care of you during this time. In the expectations of that. I know some institutions that I'm applying out here in San Diego, like they're requiring you to get a flu shot and like all this stuff. There's all these precautions and stuff. So I think just really staying true to yourself and being real about what you want, and not compromising just because we're in this pandemic situation is what I would add to that.
I will chime in and just give you kind of the overarching, remember what it is that you go into the search looking for, right? So just because you're under these circumstances and life is not what we envisioned it to be when we went through grad school, try your best to stay true to what it is that you want from your job. I told myself I'm going to take the first job offer I get because who knows when the next one will come, right? And I did that. And there's parts of what I still wanted, I got. And there's parts that I had to say, can you do this overall? And I'm still here. So it's something that you really want to remind yourself, if this is something I want, I'm not going to settle just because of circumstances. But if there is a bill that needs to be paid, we sometimes have to bridge those gaps as we happen. Bridging the gap. The theme is bridging the gap. Didn't know I used that way. But I think Hannah and Shaq really gave the candidate experience. Just remember to stay true, be yourself, and continue to go after what it is that you set forth for yourself in your first job, your next transition, whatever that case may look like for you. And so since I'm already speaking, we're going to tap into the employer's consideration during the process. If you are looking to bring on new staff to your team, give us a little grace, please. Things have not been, they're not the same. Things have definitely changed over time, and it's something that's out of our control. Biggest thing for me was the moving expectation. I moved a week after I got the job offer. Mind you, I moved maybe 200 miles, but it's still a big piece of that experience. And right now there's a safety piece that's connected. So having a conversation with your employers or potential employers or organizational leadership and having questions about what do we provide to support the moving experience for our new professional staff. I will tell you that one of the biggest red flags after you get a job offer is the support that is offered to move. That is something that has changed because budgets have reflected what COVID has put student affairs and higher education through. But it is important that your new staff member or your new hire, or you as the candidate or the successful candidate in the search, understand that there are some factors that have to be addressed when it comes to your transition, and moving is a part of your transition. And don't think that, oh, I should be lucky I have a job. They're lucky to have you, but you're also very blessed to have a job. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to highlight that part. But remember that is something that you have to consider, because moving, flying, plane, train, cruise ship, times have changed. Times are a little bit uncertain. So understanding that and being vocal and communicative about what you need as a part of your moving package, and being able to have that open dialogue with your new employer and employers. Ask those questions to your panelists, your candidates, those you bring onto the virtual on campuses, because that's a whole nother experience in itself. But on that same accord, we're talking about understanding circumstances. And I think Shaq will be able to kind of touch on connecting the circumstances to the job search and employers and the whole nine. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. I think you hit on a lot of like the circumstances in general, right? Like, especially for me, that was a huge part. I moved 3 times during COVID. It was wild. I moved from San Francisco to Miami, then from Miami to Chicago. And that was a big thing for me, right? Like, I asked a lot of questions about the COVID experience and those things. But I think the one thing that I would say about understanding circumstances, which you talked about, like the virtual on campus, I'm not gonna lie, that blew me. Like, the virtual on campus was, y'all, it was what, like 6 hours, right? And so, like, I think we all, like, now Zoom fatigue is like this word, right? Like, Zoom fatigue has become this the new buzzword of higher education. And it's real. Like it's a real thing. We're gonna say team fatigue right now, right? Because we're on Microsoft Teams. But at the same, like, I don't think when we were going through this process, I don't think anyone thought about doing an interview. Like everyone tried to still keep the on-campus experience the same, even though it was virtual. And so first of all, being on Zoom and trying to bring yourself is 110% energy. Like you're using all of your energy to make sure that the employers are understanding who you are. Like you're not trying to be all like slouchy or all of those things. So if you don't have good posture on Zoom, it's real hard to like hide that. Like it's a lot of stuff to think about. And so like your brain's already worried about like, what do I look like? Even though like in real life, that's like some of what you think about. But on Zoom, like you can see all the pores, like, right? Like you can see everything. But 6 hours on a Zoom call, going through all of the people, and it was great to meet all of the folks. But at the end, like I was done. I was out of commission for the day, and which that's mostly how on-campus interviews work in general. But going back to understanding the circumstances, that did not have to be like that. And I think that there is a better way that we can think about kind of how we do on campuses. I even think about beyond now, like, right, like since we can condense on campuses to maybe 3 hours. I think for my position that I took here, my on campus was actually about 3 hours. So half of like some of what the other ones that I did, that we can actually do that for on campus in-person interviews if we were to ever go back to that. I also know that there are some like recording sessions that you can use, that you can pre-record answers, so that like we can cut the time that we're doing online things. And I think that just thinking about those circumstances when it comes to bringing new folks on, and that immediately, like I said, it blew me. Like I was drained from those on-campus interviews. So employers can kind of consider like how can we rearrange and think about those things as well.
Also, I think it's important for employers to consider individual identities, and just kind of knowing that we're all new COVID graduates and people who are still looking or have found a job. I think it's important to consider the identity of like being a COVID graduate, and understanding what that's like, and along with our social identities as well. And I mean, for me, working and coming from predominantly white institutions, obviously I'm Black, and that is something that is known. I can't hide it, but just understanding like we're not here to just meet quotas. I'm sorry, I'm just a social justice warrior at all times, but I think it's important that we're not just looking for people of color to do the work at these predominantly white institutions, but considering our identities as well. But I think that COVID graduate is really real, and knowing that some of us had to finish our institution work or had to spend the rest of the spring semester or last 2 quarters, whatever your institution does, virtually, and how that can be hard. I think about also like accommodations in terms of like, are you going to give me a work computer? Like that's a big thing that I'm asking right now, and that needs to be considered because my little Mac is tired. Like I always say that to people, but are there different accommodations for people if we're able to work virtually and stuff like that? But I think identity is something important to take into consideration, especially since we're not able to be physically present during these interviews and stuff like that. I don't know what it's like to be on campus. I know Shaq and Jordan are present on their campuses or in their workplaces, and I'm not, thank God. But I don't know what that's like in terms of identity, because I show up as myself in my box, but there's so much of me that the employer is not able to experience, especially as someone who operates off of energy and vibes, as we call it. But I think about that too. And I also think about transitions. Transitions, I feel like transitioning a whole institution onto a virtual platform, for those that haven't necessarily been virtual, can be hard. I think about that in workspace too. I know that I'm someone who it's hard for me to engage online. It's hard for me to just be on the computer all day. So is that something that I can really do? You know, do I have to sit in meetings all day? Or am I able to work individually? I know I like to work individually, do my music thing, come in, have a meeting every once in a while, whatever it is. But I think understanding what that transition looks like for you and adding that to your expectations when you are a candidate in this space, and being gracious to yourself. What people, it's not what people fail to realize. I need y'all to all understand first and foremost, COVID-19 is one trauma that everyone's experiencing. And it has literally snatched the rug out of from under us. We're trying to figure out when we're going to go back to normal, when the world has changed forever for this, not to be like dark, but it's changed. And we have, especially working at collegiate institutions, there needs to be a lot of grace because we're dealing with things that we've never dealt with before. So I think it's just reminding ourselves to give ourselves grace, and also employers for like new people giving us grace too. Not only am I new, I may be coming into a new institution that I have to learn about virtually, you know, that I've never seen. I come in and do these interviews for institutions that I've never even stepped foot on the campus. So I can only take your word for it. Which, I mean, y'all got some good words, so I'm sure that's great. But I think it's important for y'all to give us grace too. And I think I'm experiencing that right now. I just finished a 1-week training for my new job, and just how much grace it is. And I was on Zoom all day for 5 days a week, but just the compassion and the patience that the employers have on behalf of us as someone who's coming in and learning new processes and procedures. I think that's important. And what's always key is setting new professional goals. And that's with your employee and employer, especially virtually. You know, I'm at home, I'm at my desk. You know what I'm saying? There's things and expectations that we have of each other, but that doesn't mean just because you're at home, you have to give up on your professional goals and aspirations that you have. There will be a day when we're outside of the house and able to go back out into the world again. So don't give up on that, and just continue to have grace in that. And being very transparent with your employers and supervisors. Jordan's feeling that. But yeah, I think it's just very important to just not give up on yourself and just remain gracious and kind, and being real with yourself at all times. Values that I have with employers, I always tell them, they ask you like, what is your top trait or top strength? And I'm saying transparency. Like, let's just be honest. Transparency and communication. Like, let's be honest, and I'm going to be real. And I like to challenge professionally, but just being real about that. So I think it's important to be real with who you are as a whole. So yeah.
For sure. I think we have Fernando has joined us. Is that Fernando? Are you here?
Yes, I'm here, and I apologize for the inconvenience and for my tardiness. You know, I would like to kind of go on off what Hannah said, and I think that a big process when a big part of what you have to do when you are applying for jobs, in my opinion, is to really understand your values. I think that it's a great exercise to list your strengths and also be able to acknowledge your personal and professional growth throughout the different professional experiences that you have. So when you do have the opportunity to interview, when you do have the chance to participate in this interview process at different institutions, you're able to really present yourself with confidence and authenticity. And I think that being prepared, it doesn't take away the authenticity that you can bring into this space. I think you really have to understand yourself, you know, what you want from the profession, what do you want your practice to be, your goals, and have an outline of, I think, how do you want to participate in the institution that you want to work at? Because maybe sometimes, you know, when we are looking for a job, we are sometimes just kind of like looking for something to do, looking for that one job. But I think that you have to kind of hold yourself to a higher standard because, you know, you go through college through so many years, you experience so many things, you're engaged in so many different experiences that you hold some form of richness to yourself and to your identity and to who you are. and you have to be able to bring that into the space that you want to work with. You know, so that's just one of my my advices to people who are going through this process and, you know, who are engaging in this, you know, and being a candidate right now for work.
He may have been the last one in, but came right on time. It spoke to my spirit, spoke to me personally. But just to bring it together, right? We're talking about bridging the gaps. We're talking about in a time of constant uncertainty, identity-wise, race-wise, health and safety, job placement, equity and income. There's so many aspects that are impacting the job search now. It is so important to be kind to yourself, right? Give yourself what you need, and remember that every no isn't definite. You may receive 1 or 2 or 3 and 4, but the idea is that, or 5. 5 is a real good number, but understand that it is a part of your progress, right? Your story to your students is going to be, oh, before I got this job, I didn't know what was going to happen. These are the things that you take into the field with you. Don't think that you are alone in this process. There is networks and support groups for individuals, not support groups, but colleague groups that are really having the conversation of, I can't find a job. I just got out of grad school. I said, oh, we all make a little sacrifice when we do student affairs because we say, oh, there's these things that I can do, but I'm really good at this. And there's some things that you already established that you're not going to get in your field, large income in your first job, but that's fine. We do it past that. We do it for the people. But you have a network. Rely on your network. Tap into your network. I am not the best at networking. Networking events kind of intimidate me because I'm an introvert at heart, and I'm only an extrovert because my students require me to be that, right? But I know that I have professionals that I've come in contact with who have mentored me. And so talking to them, even if they say, oh yeah, I don't know what to tell you, having someone to talk through it with, they've never experienced this, right? We've gotten to a place in education that everyone has access. Everyone has access minus their lived experiences and circumstances. Let's not generalize. But it's more open than it has been in years. And now when it comes to working in a role, it's hard to do that. So be kind to yourself. Understand that you will have a job at some point. If you're still in grad school, make it a contingency plan. You may have to do a little pivot. Nothing's wrong with a pivot. Just pivot on back because there's talent out there. I'm pretty sure some of you are like, ooh, they have me scared. This wasn't to scare. You will have a job. You will be successful in that role. Be vocal, communicate, and understand that you are walking a bridge that may not have all the steps or stones in it, but you still have spaces to step on to make it to where you're going. I just came up with that, but it was very good. Yes, snap for put that on a t-shirt. But if anyone doesn't have anything else, I'm gonna do a shameless plug. Season 2 of the Higher Head podcast is coming very soon. Shaq is fighting me. I want it back in December, so I'm rooting for the people because the people need it. And with that, we can open up the Q&A, and I think Mary Kate will kind of give y'all some instructions as to how that works. We may not be able to see y'all, but I feel the energy in the room.
The vibes.
The vibes. Vibes. You might be muted.
Mm-hmm. Totally muted. Totally, my 2020 game is just constantly being muted. But if you have any questions, please feel free to place them in the Q&A chat. We will go ahead and read them. Yes, so that will be good. While we're waiting for some questions, I do want to say that some of the folks from the podcast are planning on sticking with us for most of the afternoon, which is really exciting for us. So if you have enjoyed some of this conversation, particularly regarding job search in the pandemic, as well as just general questions that you may have, or you want to connect with them one-on-one, there's going to be 2 sessions in the afternoon that will be available for you to be able to connect with them, and you'll be able to see their face and they'll be able to see your face. So it'll be a great experience for everybody. But I think our first question is going to be, how did you choose the size of school that you were looking for and the type of school? So, we in Ohio, we have, and actually throughout the world, so I don't know why I just decided to say in Ohio, but we have large institutions, small institutions, regional publics, large publics. And so how did you choose the institution that you went to grad school with or are working now, and why did you choose that particular school?
I can talk about that. In regards to choosing the school that you want to either go to grad school or you want to work at, I think beyond whether it's a public or private institution, you have to go through the process of reading their mission statement, understanding their values, what they stand for, the department that you want to work for, and really understand whether if those values and that mission align with who you are as a person and your values. I think that when you do become a candidate for the position and you are engaging in this process with the institution, you got to find a comfort place at this institution. Beyond the job, you're going to be making a commitment and being in this place. So really understanding what you need and what you can bring to the space and whether that space is for you and whether that institution is something like it's a place where you would like to, engage with and participate in. I don't know if that answers a complete question, but that's my perspective on it.
No, yeah, I think Fernando did a great job at answering the question. I think for grad school, it was really just like who is gonna pay for the school, like who's paying for me to go, and that's just being real, transparency, right, Hannah? And then when it came to choosing where I wanted to work, though, that for me was really, really important. Because especially getting my first position, I was like Jordan, I was like, I'm going to take the first job that I get. But the reason I was like that was because I was very particular with the places that I applied to. So when I went through the process, originally I was like, I'm just going to apply because I got the skills. Like, I'm going to do this. But then I was like, actually, let me think about this, right? There's certain things that I need to think about. Like, I need my group of people. Like, I need to have a space where there's Black people, and that's just me. Like, I need to have my identities need to be present, not only at the institution, but in the place that I'll be moving to. And then I thought about also when it came to like large, small, medium school. I went to a large undergrad. I know I didn't want to do that. So I was like, it's going to be between medium and small. It's a lot more intimate when working with my students and getting to know the institution in itself and like the history and everything behind it. And then the last part I would say is I knew that I wanted to go to somewhere that had a mission and not just like it was there and it was like, this is our mission, but the people actually was like, this is the mission, these are the values, and this is how we use it. And so I definitely thought about those things. And those are some of the questions that I asked, right? Is like, okay, your mission says this, your department mission says this, and these kind of misalign. And so how do you kind of bridge them back together? And so kind of thinking about those things were how I chose where I wanted to work at. And then obviously just waiting for the call.
Yeah, fun fact, I took the GRE the day before my graduate school application was due, and took the test the day it was due, and then submitted the application when I got to work afterwards. So don't do that. But I wanted to go out of state for grad school. That didn't happen. My mom has like major sun FOMO, and so I stayed in Florida and went to a predominantly white institution. I'm not going to name it, but if you find it, let me know. But I attended one of our flagships for grad school, and so that experience reassured me of something because I went to a Hispanic serving institution for undergrad. I actually went with Shaq, and there's a different atmosphere at minority dominant institutions that aren't at predominantly white institutions. And so to be a grad student, it was my first time overseeing students who identified as white. And that was something that challenged me eternally because there needs to be a connection between myself and my students, that they reassure themselves in the work that I'm doing and they trust that I know what I'm doing, right? And that's not always the case. So as a professional of color, I kind of got the reassurance from grad school that I can step into a predominantly white institution and still do the job without fear of not connecting with my students. And so now like I said, the first job that called was the first job I was taking. I'm at a small-ish liberal arts institution, predominantly white, 8,000 students. And I indirectly supervise about 20 students. I lied, 31. So I oversee an entire classroom of students, basically. I say this to say, I make these decisions based off the experiences and things that I needed. I needed to be challenged because after undergrad, you kind of feel like, oh, I was involved, I could do everything. We have to shake it off. If we want our students to recognize where they fall short, we have to be able to do it for us as professionals. So my students are alive, they're eating, they're sleeping. So I pat myself in the back, but that is how I chose my current institution. Yeah.
You can take I don't know if there's any more questions, but we can go on to the next question if we still have time.
Awesome. I relate to moms having son FOMO. My brother, the favorite child, my mother also has son FOMO for him. Not me, though. I love my mother. I forget there are people watching this. So can you share, and I think this is a great closing question, can you share with us a piece of advice that you have both for an undergraduate student who is looking at graduate programs, as well as a soon-to-be graduating graduate student who is looking at a full-time job search, and everybody in between?
Yes, I can take that question. For an undergraduate student looking to go into grad school, buckle up. I tell everybody buckle up. Just strap in, okay? You're getting ready for a crazy ride. I think definitely doing your research and remaining open. I chose to not take the GRE, so that narrowed my search down real brief, okay? And just it narrowed it down because I didn't think that I feel like I'm not a good test taker. But if I would have taken the GRE, that would have widened my options and led me to an institution where I didn't take out a lot of loans. So I definitely say doing your research, making sure your values and stuff align, along with, are you able to really see yourself there at that institution, whatever program you're in, like really understanding the programs, digging in and talking to people that go there. Because sometimes we sign up for stuff and we get something different. So really, not that I did, well, I did, but but understanding that if you have the opportunity to engage with prospective students or students that are already there, really talking to them and navigating that. For those that are in graduate school and looking to do full-time work, be gracious with yourself. I have locationally bounded myself to San Diego, so that has narrowed my search down significantly. If you are able, because I know everyone has different circumstances, especially during these times, open your search, like be open-minded, and do some more research and see other things if you're set on that, and even be open. And when I say be open-minded to things outside of higher ed. Or higher ed is not just at a college. It doesn't have to be just at a college institution. There's educational technology. There's association work. And those have been, there's a lot of stuff going out that's out there with that is virtual too. So I think just kind of broadening your perspective and having an open mind, but being patient, your job will come. It will. So, because it took me to get a job outside of higher ed, and now I'm getting follow-ups, and I'm just like, okay, what? So, just definitely just keep the hope alive and don't give up on yourself, and you're all doing great.
And this is why we love her. I'm gonna try to keep it brief. If you're going into a program from undergrad to grad, know yourself to some degree because you're going to change. So literally write down, I like sour candy. And by the end of grad school, you'll be like, chocolate is my favorite type of candy. Something happens. Something definitely happens once you enter. The programs are either there's no program that's more than 2 years. There may be a third year there or a first, like a 1 year program. There is so much that is going to change about you in that time. And I will say change for the good. I haven't met someone who has gone through grad school and was worse. No, I'm kidding. There, you will do so much growth. You will work on yourself and not even know that you did that work. If you're going into a full-time role, develop a sleeping pattern. And remember that as you're connecting with professionals at your institution, check in with yourself. Literally sit down and have a check-in and just say, are you okay? Are you meeting the expectations that you set for yourself? I think it's important to have that self-dialogue. I don't mean like talk back to yourself. Don't do that. But sit down and just really engage with the environment and the work that you're in. It's going to be important to, once again, see how you're changing in these transitions. So my advice to everyone is understand where you are when you start so you know what the product is when you're done. And that's all I got. I ain't got no more on that.